Welcome to the Money Down. We got Chris Long joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time out your busy schedule. No, got kids and everything like myself, so it's hard to break free.
We're not the boss anymore. We're pretty good at being told where to go, where to be. So,
we're used to that. We're used to that from being football players. But first, I gotta kick it off, man. What is it like being part of one of the greatest, NFL football families, of all time? I mean, all three of you guys are first round picks.
Yeah.
Dad's a Hall of Famer. Did you feel like you had to live up to those standards growing up, or you just use it as motivation?
Oh, for sure. And let me just say this. I think there's a bunch of families now popping up that are really kicking our ass a little bit. I mean, you get the Bosa's, the Kelce's. There's so many great, even some families that people are like, I didn't know those guys were related. There's a lot of really great football families out there. And I don't think it's always just genetics, because people will be like, James played with me. I'm not the biggest freak of nature in the world. It really is just kind of growing up being a gamer and growing up around the game. And just, if your dad's competitive, if your uncle played, if that kind of competitive attitude, the work ethic kind of spills over into what you do. Look at Matthew Slater.
Yeah.
Matthew Slater's not built like Jackie Slater.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? So it's not the genetics, although he is a great athlete. Because when you get up in the league, everybody's athletic as hell, dude. I mean, you look at the combine these days, I don't even know if my numbers would have held up at all in 15 years. But I think it was always a lot of pressure, for sure. And, at a lot of turns in the road, if you accomplish something, it'd be, well, it's just because your dad or this, that, and the third. And, I think that made me better. That made me more capable of dealing with pressure. And for me, it kept me humble because, it's, if I go home and think I'm something, I'm at the dinner table, there's a Hall of Famer right there.
Yeah.
They're sitting next to me. There's, we've been doing this and we're very lucky to be able to do it. But yeah, it kept you humble, I think. I was never doing anything that hadn't been done in my family.
So, Chris, I want to ask you, even though, like you said, Pop's Hall of Famer, when did it set in that, number 2 overall in the draft is insane? That's honestly, so when did that hit you?
The greatest franchise in NFL history. I just want to say that too, by the way. The Rams.
Hey, listen, it hit me the night before. Well, I knew I was going to be. All right, I'll back up. Somebody asked me this question the other day, when did you know you're going to play in the NFL? For me, it was my sophomore year, going out for the spring game and really just balled out in that game. I never expected to be one of those guys. And it was getting to be apparent to me that hey, you got a shot to be one of those guys. And my junior year had an opportunity to come out and draft and, got my bottom of the first round draft pick grade back. And I can remember huddling around the kitchen table with my dad, his kind of right-hand dude that was his agent, a high school coach. And we were just talking out, do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? You'd be stupid to pass this up. And I was like, well, I guess I'm stupid because I want to do better. I think I got 1 year in me where I can really, and I didn't come back just to improve my draft stock. Bottom of the first round would have been great. Actually, probably would have made my life a lot better in some ways too.
Yeah, you want a better team.
Go make your money on the second deal, and but I wanted to come back because things were a little different then. I know today I'm all about transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. Good, it's a process. They'll figure it out. But back then, I really just wanted to finish with what I started with my teammates and. I'm pretty loyal. And so I just came back for my senior year and it worked out. I had 14 sacks, I think, and just played really well. And we won 10 games. It was a wild year. We almost won 10 games, played in a bowl game. And then as the draft got closer, when you look back at our draft, it wasn't a star-studded draft. So, a guy like me could climb into the top 5 for sure. And, it just kind of lined up well. I remember the night before Scott Linehan, if you remember all the way back then, Warren, but he had called me and my buddies were out drinking and celebrating, because when you go up to Radio City, you got all your boys with you. And I got the call about 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night before we were headed out. And he was like, hey, we're going to draft you tomorrow. And so I knew that I ended up, in the top 5. But I also knew that like it gives you time to think about it. Like number one, my dad was like, hey, dude, guess what? You're going home now. You're going back to the hotel. All your buddies are getting on this bus. Your ass is back at the hotel. And actually, one of them woke me up at 5 a.m. because they knocked on my door and they were like, hey, is this your friend? He was sleeping in the lobby. No, I got a trap. I said, let him in. He slept on the bench in the hallway to the hotel. My buddy stayed in Jersey that night after the draft, and they almost burnt the hotel down. So and these are all a couple of them ended up playing the league themselves now. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
It was just a wild time, man. It just all kind of came together, and I'm very thankful. I wouldn't change anything, but I do sometimes, and I love my time with the Rams. But where they were as an organization, anytime you get picked in the top 5, if you're not a quarterback, you really can't control that situation.
Right.
And so, it was a hard run in St. Louis. It really was. But heavy is the head that wears the crown. And if you're going to make a bunch of money out of the gate, I don't feel sorry for kids that make gold CBA money and win 3-4 games over the first 3 years. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure.
we had Sony on here like early on, and we asked him, did he get the private jet treatment when he got drafted? He got number 2 overall.
Did he? Did he get the private jet?
He got sent on stuff.
Yeah, they sent me on like TWA or something. Like I don't
Did you at least get first class?
I'll never forget the night of the draft. We went out to some nightclub, and I being a college kid, it'd be like being up at Wisconsin. Like you're not really used to nightclubs. We were, in the morning, and got back to my room, and I guess my flight was at like 6:30 or whatever. And I just remember having a really hard time putting on a button-down shirt. We were going straight to the press conference, and I just remember like when you're that age, you're not real good at not getting your 8 hours, even if
for sure.
As you get older, I used to watch guys like after they won the Super Bowl in the morning after, and I'd be like, how the hell are they doing this? They probably slept like an hour. But as you get older, you get better at working on, no sleep. And that was my intro into that. And so, I got right on the plane, and it was commercial as hell, dude. They had to roll the jet bridge out and shit.
Pedestrian.
I think they handed out peanuts.
Hey, talking about 2 Super Bowls, man, just obviously first off, I want to congratulate you on being a 2-time Super Bowl champ, man. Like that's tough to do. We know how hard it is.
I want to thank one guy here.
For sure. But just talk about, let us know, what was that like being a 2-time Super Bowl champ and on 2 different teams back-to-back years? Like we know that's not easy.
No, it wasn't easy, man. And for me, with the backdrop being 8 years in St. Louis, where we go 1-15, we go 2-14. I mean, we were a fake field goal against the Detroit Lions away from going 0-16 one year. So I had seen the bottom, and like for me, I just wondered if I'd ever get out, and got to accomplish a lot individually, and had some really good years there, but you felt like nobody saw it. Which kind of sucks. Like nobody's watching the Rams play on Sunday. Like they're watching James and those guys. So to get an opportunity to be a part of, not only one, but 2 great organizations, and like Bill to throw me that lifeline. I was on IR for 2 years. I was year 6 captain. Things are going great, like balling and everything. And then you get hurt. It reinforces how quick in the NFL 2 years in a row, IR, you're washed. And for me, I didn't know, on the wrong end of 30 when the next job would be or where it was going to be. And for me, I'll never forget, it was my first son was born. I was thinking about retiring, really was, and went to the grocery store. Not that day I wasn't thinking about retiring, but I was just thinking it over. And I went to the grocery store and I was grabbing some beers and some stuff for Meg. And I got a call, and I was like, let me pick this up. And I pick it up, and I'm in like the dairy aisle, and it's like, hey, it's Bill Belichick. And I'm like, oh shit. So I sprint to the front of the Harris Teeter, and I'm like, I better not lose service here. And I'll just never forget the conversation. He was like, man, I don't know what role we're going to have for you. And James knows how this is. Like, they're going to use you however they're going to use you. But he was like, you're a really good player. I've enjoyed watching you over the years, and I think you can help us. And I'll never forget him saying that to me. And that's all I needed to hear. Yeah. And I just took that leap of faith. And, Chandler got traded like a day or two before. And when I looked at the roster, there was Jabal, Ninko, Chandler, and it would have been me and like two other guys. And I just there was no place for me. But then once the thing with Chan happened, it kind of opened up. And so I was on a flight to Dallas actually to visit the Cowboys. And I didn't even get on it. I just left the airport and called Bill. And I was like, I'm coming up. So, that year was amazing, man. And to be a part of an organization that really it's expected, it's I'm so conditioned to be like, what's going to go wrong every Sunday, every day, and to be in that building and just see that these guys are accustomed to winning. It was really cool. And at times I felt a little bit, out of my element in a weird way. I was a really good loser. I was a bad winner. What it was like to really expect things to go right. And I think, and having a guy or two like me on a team like that is good because it reinforces how lucky those guys are, I think. And, in talking to those guys a lot, the things that we had been through, and I know they have vets all the time to come through there, it surprises them and, it reinforces how great it was up there. So getting that opportunity. And then Philly was like, for me, I was playing with house money because I got my ring, I've made my money, I've had my individual success, but this was a chance to just go out on my own terms somewhere where I would play my style of football. And hey, if we won, great. But man, I had no idea what would happen. And, that run was, and I know, the Pats are on the other side of it, but it was like a movie, man. It really was we rallied around each other like no other team I've ever been on. New England was different where I always say this, I've never played with so many great leaders and great winners and just people that you want to be around. People talk about it's not fun up there. It is. The people are fun, man. There's some good people up there. But Philly was a totally different deal where we were just making it up as we went along. When the guy they have up there in the playoffs to talk to the team about winning is a guy who just learned how to win a calendar year ago. It is. I just learned. So it was just cool, the whole journey from Carson getting hurt to the way the playoff games went to just looking across the sideline of Tom Brady, man, and being we got Nick Foles, but we're gonna figure out a way. And so it was amazing, man. It just totally validated my career to be able to be a part of those teams.
You feel like playing with Tom, obviously being on the opposite side of the ball the year before, really helped you out the next year when you were really playing against him?
Well, it helped temper my expectations that we weren't going to get home a lot.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know what the game plan was like on the other side, but we just knew they were gonna chip out. They would double chip a lot. They were going to be quick with the ball. They were going to get that ball out. And
take care of Fletcher Cox, make sure he wasn't getting too many one-on-one blocks.
And not going to let Fletcher Cox beat us, right? And you know what? It really just took one big defensive play. That's all it was, because there was not, like I said, the other side of the ball. I was walking around that week bothering all the offensive guys, how many points can you score? How many points can you score? I knew we were going to give up about 30 of those. and so
was
and we were really good. We didn't have maybe some of the lockdown man-to-man corners that Jim Schwartz had in Cleveland, but our front was really good, and we flew around. But more than anything, I've never believed in a team of destiny until that year, because I really do think a lot of things just happen for us, where it's man, somebody's looking out for us or something, because it was magic. I mean, Tom being on the other side of it, what a killer he is. How detail-oriented guys like James are. How they're going to coach. They're not going to miss anything. And, we just had to play perfect. And we offensively, we did, and that's what it took.
Yeah. Talking about fronts, we saw you had Aaron Donald on your pod just the other day. You know, arguably one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time. I wanted to ask you.
Hey, when I call my young guy and he comes through on that one, that was big, man. He's a good rookie. He's a good rookie.
Yeah. So how quickly did you guys realize he was going to be a great defensive player? He's my teammate at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, they're doing like one-on-ones on the opposite side of the field, you know, running backs, we're on the other side. You just hear the oohing and ahhing. So you like keep looking back. And then like we did team periods, he started killing us during that period too. So I kind of had an idea. So how long did it take you guys to realize he's going to be dominant?
Like at this stage in my career, I got to be right about stuff. One of the thing I'm most proud about being right about is this dude. Not that it took like a rocket scientist to realize it, but Les Snead told this story the other day on somebody's podcast, on Peter Schrager's podcast, I think. And he was like, hey, you know, day 2, Chris Long and William Hayes walked over to me. He was a teammate of mine, William Hayes. And they said, hey, coach, I don't know how you do it, but you should just tear up his rookie deal and make him the highest paid. Right now. Because that's the right thing to do. He is the best defensive player in the league. And we told some reporters that, and you know, like they kind of laughed it off.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a guy with his combination of explosiveness, strength, leverage, and length. I mean, he has, you know, like being his height, which is like he'd probably tell you 6 foot. I don't
know. Questionable.
He's got 6'5" arms.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, on the pod the other day, the thing that shocked even me, having played with him, was he played at like 258 at times.
He was a nose guard at 258.
Oh,
that's
insane.
So he's one guy who's got that incredible strength and explosiveness and length to be able to play and turn that size mismatch into an advantage for him. And also, he was the hardest working kid, man. Like I remember – I used to come in after training camp, you know, it'd be like 8, 9 o'clock, and I'd go watch film. And we only had this one film room for the D line, and there's only one computer, and it's not like New England where you got it. So I walk in, and it's 9 o'clock, and there's no cars in the parking lot. And, you know, a couple nights in a row now, this little rookie is sitting in my chair watching film. I'm like, this is my spot. Like, you're not and I didn't move him because I was like, it warmed my heart seeing a rookie that had that kind of commitment to the game. And he seemed to know, like, somebody along the way taught him ball.
Yeah.
You know, like not just the X's and O's, but, you know, somebody knew, you know, the art of pass rushing and how to watch film. And somebody gave him that gift because he came in the league with it.
Yeah.
And he just continued to build on that. When you watch him, he's a technician. He really was.
You know, obviously you've played ball for a while and you've seen a lot of great defensive linemen over the course of your years. And with you being one of them, like would you say Aaron Donald's the best defensive lineman of all time?
Oh, and I can only judge off position by position, but at his position for sure. And obviously, you got to talk about people like Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White, but and everybody's a little bit different. But I got to tell you, I mean, in today's NFL, bigger, faster, stronger, the whole thing. I think he could play in any era. I think he'd be dominant in any era. And, you know, the numbers that he got to as quickly as he got to them, but then the way he left the game kind of like in a Barry Sanders way.
Yeah.
Like me, I know he played another 5 years, he'd average 10 sacks a year.
100%. Easily. Yeah.
Easily. So I do think he's the best to ever do it at his position and arguably the best defensive player of all time.
I can agree with that because as an offensive player, you know, playing with Josh McDaniels, every time we played the Rams, every single play we're accounting for him. The slides going to him 99.9% of the time, unless they move him in some position where he can't possibly do it. But, yeah, like the run plays were schemed towards him. The pass plays were schemed towards him just to try and eliminate him as much as possible. Because if you don't –
and that's what I felt. And that's, you know, like if you want to know what makes somebody great is like if sit in on the meeting room leading up to the game and see, you know, how much of that game plan is predicated on stopping that person. And I can guarantee you he kept more people awake at night than anybody.
by far.
Because it's also when you have somebody inside, and somebody you can move around like him, it's really hard. I mean, I'll never forget one time we had an open scrimmage, like an open practice, which is kind of a big deal in training camp. There's people watching, there's fans there, and I'll never forget. I had a hamstring thing, and I ran off the field during like a 2-minute drill kind of thing, and I was trying to get this sleeve on my hamstring, and so that we were down bodies, and we moved rookie Aaron Donald out to end. And I'm watching him rush at end. In the first play, he runs right by the tackle. I hadn't done all day. And then he spins inside the tackle. And I'm trying to get this sleeve on his and then the third play, he just pulls him right into the – and I'm like, 99. Fuck the sleeve, bro. I ran back out there, and I was like, I cannot let anybody see him do my job 5 times better.
I gotta get back out there.
Yeah, he did everything.
He's a beast, man. Before we continue, let's have a word from our sponsor, Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is bet over or under on some of your favorite athletes' projected stats, and you can win big prizes. Look, I'm a South Florida guy. When the NBA playoffs roll around, I'm betting big on all of Jimmy Butler's overs because we all know that's when he steps up. And when you sign up with Prize Picks using our promo code MONEYDOWN, Prize Picks will match up to $500 on your first deposit. I repeat, when you use our promo code MONEYDOWN, Prize Picks will match up to $500 on your first deposit. You can bet small and you can win big. This will be our first time to talk about it. I'm sure you probably hit it on your pod, but what's you guys' thoughts on the Stefon Diggs trade? Obviously, that's been a huge saga over the last couple years. His tantrums. That's one of my friends. He's in my agency.
I like Diggs, man. Being around Diggs is super cool. And also, you got to understand, some people are just so damn competitive. Yeah, we're all competitive, but it comes out different ways. And whenever I see somebody like him who, he wants the ball because he wants to win. It's not – I don't think he's I don't think – a lot of wide receivers are divas. If you want to put him in a diva class, I put him in the cool diva class. Yeah. I understand what makes him tick. So I get it. And I know the thing with him and Josh kind of bubbled for a while. I think it's a great move for Houston. I think Houston, I said this before the Diggs trade, Houston's as dangerous as anybody in the AFC when it comes to actually challenging Kansas City. Yeah. And they upgraded at pretty much every position that they turned somebody over. Grenard was great. They brought in Danielle Hunter. I think the Azeez Al-Shaair move is going to be great. Joe Mixon, the second level. You add the Autry, who's great. They let Rankins walk. Mixon steps in for Singletary, who, in my opinion, Singletary is a really good player. Yeah. But Mixon's 27. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season. So you add all these pieces together, and you've got Nico Collins, Tank Dell, you've got Stefon Diggs. They're all vertical threats. I really do think, and I think that division is going to be fun because you look at what Tennessee's doing on
I like what they do.
Yeah. That secondary is going to be Awuzie, McCreary, and obviously Snead, who is a dog. That little arms race is just to stop C.J. Stroud. And so I'm really excited to see that division. I'm a big C.J. Stroud fan. He reminds me of Brady. Yeah. He really does.
That's a high comparison.
I'm not saying they're exactly the same or he's going to win 7 championships or whatever. Yeah. But what I am saying is his ability to navigate the pocket as a pocket passer with precision and his eyes downfield. Burrow and Brady, when Burrow came in the league, I was like, oh, he kind of reminds me of Tom in that way. Yeah. And CJ's the other guy, and so I'm a big fan of CJ Stroud. And then for Buffalo, they had to do this. They had to do it, and it sucks because they're actually paying Stefon more than next year. They can get back in a better situation cap-wise. And I also think grabbing that 2 in 2025, it's Minnesota's 2. So they probably think, hey, that could be a high 2. They could move either their 1 or their 2 and go up and get somebody or go grab somebody else who's out there. And they could be right back at – because I think Josh is great.
Yeah.
So I think both teams are going to be okay, but Houston is trying to win on a rookie quarterback deal, which is,
sure.
they don't want what happened to Justin Herbert to happen. It's
by the time his deal's up, he's making like $70 million a year. At that point,
for real.
I gotta ask you, so do you think Josh Allen's Super Bowl window's closed? I mean, it could reopen, but like for the next few years.
So I think the only thing that closes Josh's window is injury. I mean, and this is the crazy thing about him is, I don't know about you guys, I've never seen him get up slow. I think that to me is a miracle, the way they use him and the way he runs the football. And I really do think, whether you take Burrow second or him second in the NFL or Lamar, I mean, there's no wrong answer. But for me, I would, if I had to draft quarterbacks, I might take Allen second because of that durability.
Yeah.
I've seen Burrow has been dinged a few times, and I just think as long as he's there, they're in it. And I think the unfortunate truth, and it was the truth for a lot of guys that played in Brady's era and now Mahomes' era, is you were born at the wrong time. You were in the wrong conference at the wrong time, where I think Josh did everything he could have done down the stretch last year. 28-23, Diggs dropped the ball. They missed the kick. They lost to Mahomes again. But I thought, especially when you consider the defense he was playing against compared to the defense that Patrick was playing against, I didn't hold that against Josh. And I think Josh will be fine. And Brandon Beane's got to just nail it on this draft, right?
Oh, for sure.
The biggest draft of his life. So I don't think the window's closed, but these teams have to retool now. Not when their franchise quarterback, when that salary kicks up the way it does for Josh this year, it's like a different kind of game.
What you think, so?
I think I'm not gonna lie to you. I think the window's closed. I mean, and you got a lot of teams and a lot of, like I said, you got a lot of teams that have put together solid squads.
Yeah,
Houston's coming. I mean,
Cincinnati be back.
Cincinnati will be back. Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Like it's at one point it was only a couple teams. You would only say like Kansas City and the Bills, but now it's literally like 5-6 teams that you're gonna really have to worry about. But I also, with that, to me it's all matchups. And we talked about it, James. Like, we knew if Kansas City would have seen Baltimore, or not Baltimore, if Buffalo would have seen Baltimore, it could have been a totally different story, right? But we kind of knew what their Achilles heel was, which is get past it seems
everybody's Achilles.
Everybody's Achilles heel. Chris, I wanted to ask you.
It's all No, you're right. It's all matchups. That was really hard to call the AFC this year.
Oh yeah, big time.
Down to who played who.
Yeah,
100%.
So I wanted to ask you, as of recently, right? It's been a lot of transactions going, a lot of big players moving.
Big time,
it's kind of seeming like an NBA, all-star team off season where this guy's best player is playing for this team. Where do you think how do you think that's kind of coming about, and where you think it's coming from?
Well, I think the NFL is really good at dominating the calendar, man. And I think they have laid this thing out, like the legal tampering period, free agency, the draft, the combine. Like, they know how to put a vice grip on the schedule. And with all the sports that are going on right now, it feels like the NFL is never really below whatever else is going on because of free agency. And I just think the player movement now, it's a player empowerment era. And so a lot more players are holding teams' feet to the fire and saying, well, whether it's I'll hold out or I'll play on this deal, or, Kirk Cousins betting on himself and, all the franchise tags that he's played under and the times that he's been able to cash in. And so I just think it's a really interesting time when it comes to like players knowing their value and seeing the way it shakes out. I do think the NFL loves to see the movement. And I think it's good for the league. I really do, because now if an organization is not taking care of a player, like look at the Saquon thing.
Yeah.
Go down to Philly.
Let me cross that rivalry border.
Yeah, you can be mad at me all you want, but you could have paid me, and I'll play in division. And I think that stuff's fun, man.
Oh, for sure.
You got Hall of Fame. Well, I mean, you got former players saying you're dead to me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's real.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like it's the fun. it's funny because I've gone through this with Eagles fans before on my pod. When Jason Peters left and he was playing with the Cowboys, and the Eagles, I don't think wanted him at the time, but he went and played for the Cowboys. When you're 40 years old, you go and get a job wherever you can go get a job.
Right.
So people are like, "Oh, Jason's dead to me," and the whole thing. And I know that the Eagles and Chip Kelly had a lot to do with Deshaun Jackson walking, but Deshaun Jackson went and played for Washington, man, and
cut it off.
Yeah.
So, I just as a fan, like I think sometimes it's hard for them to realize it is a business and it's not personal. Sometimes you go to where you get your best opportunity, the most money, and sometimes it's going to be a division rival.
For sure. You know what? Hey, it's funny to talk about Philly fan base, and I always want to get people's input that's played on the team. Does Philly have the most passionate fan base that you've been around?
They're up there, man. Like,
because they get nuts about their team.
They're crazy, man, in a great way.
Yeah.
And like I said, like being in New England, meeting their fans is one thing, but then you meet Philly fans, like they've been waiting their whole lives for this thing, man. Like they're crazy, man. You hear the stories about the vet back in the day.
Yeah.
And they had a jail in the vet. like just insane. The tailgating is incredible. These people are out way before. I remember we won the Super Bowl the night before the parade, which is the best day of the year. We passed out, I passed out just trying to get some sleep. And I remember waking up in a panic and I lived next to this park in Philly, and I heard the EAGLE. I woke up and I was like, fuck, I'm late for the parade. Like, I'm like freaking out. I'm opening the blinds. Dark. I look at my clock. It's fucking 3:30. Out there the whole night. They didn't sleep, nothing. I mean, I'll never forget looking at 1 million people at that parade. I've never seen anything like it. And Philly fans, they're very blue collar. They really appreciate you for the effort you give. And I just thought it was a nice marriage for me at the end of my career. I wish I had played there a lot longer. They're just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, you talked about the parade. I always say that's the most fun part of the Super Bowl, that fucking parade, man. It's just
that's exactly right. In Boston, you guys had good practice at it, so it was like ran so smooth, and I love like going through all those tight streets.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember our parade because you had enough that you probably get them mixed up. But when you went through our parade, it was like snowing a little bit.
Yeah,
and it was kind of nasty out. People were out there crazy, man, throwing shots of fireball,
beer cans.
I had a guy run up to me on one of the duck boats, and I looked to my right, and there's this shirtless dude who's obviously not on the team, and I'm like, "How the fuck did you get up here?" And he's like, "Here, draw." He's like, "Can you autograph my arm?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." I ran into the guy again. He had tattooed my autograph on his arm. And I'm like, me? No, you love that. You just were like, I'm going to get on any boat and just pick any player. You didn't even look for like Tom Brady's boat. Boston fans are nuts too. I had a lot of fun there too.
That's awesome.
Talking about, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Breeze. You got it.
Oh, and I was going to say, talking about, your time in New England, I just want to hear your story from being, that Super Bowl, that comeback winning. How was that mind process and thought process for you?
Dude, like I said, I was a good loser. I was a bad winner. So when we got in that situation, down 28-3, I was like, it's over. Dudes in the locker room, there were a couple guys who were like, I remember Duran was like, dude, like, we're going to win this game. And I was like, we just need to get a stop, man. At this point in the season for me, like when I came there, I was playing end. I was playing like outside backer. And it was awesome. Like the first couple games, man, I was like rolling. And then I guess we traded not Hightower, obviously, Jamie Collins.
Yeah.
And the defense changed. And I ended up playing a lot of 3 technique from then on. And I would rush outside. And by the playoffs, I'm like 258. I wasn't, like Bill eventually was like, okay, like we're not going to be playing you on first and second down in the playoffs. So I became like a nickel guy.
Yeah.
And I remember the whole first half, we couldn't even get to third down. I think I played like 2 or 3 snaps in that first half. And I was like, I've waited my whole life to play in the Super Bowl. First off, I have barely played. Secondly, it's whatever it was at the half. And then my first play, I got out there and we're rushing 3, of course, because that's what we do in New England.
Yep.
And I get this guard that I put my foot in the ground, and he doesn't decleat me, but he knocks me off my feet. And I had chipped off a piece of bone in my knee, and I still feel it a little bit. And I'll never forget like thinking, oh, I just got hurt the first fucking play of the Super Bowl, and then watching how it went. And the whole thing, it came down to Atlanta and New England in free agency for me. And I can remember sitting on the sideline at halftime, like I'm not gonna, I'm a real guy here. Like I'm happy to be where I am, and these are my teammates. But I was like, man, and so then the second half, James and those guys just went off, and really all we had to do was create a turnover or, just swing the momentum, because I think having that time to make the adjustments for the offense, like they just started rolling. And, a lot of being a Patriot, I think, is we're not going to make the mistake.
Yeah.
It's not to say you're going to play scared but you're not going to make the mistake. And teams will beat themselves in the NFL. And in the second half, that's what Atlanta did. They beat themselves. Like we won that game, but they beat themselves. Like the play where Hightower came up with the sack and we sandwiched Matt Ryan back there. Like that's because somebody missed the protection.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the game, when they're up 8 and they have the ball in plus territory, and they get sacked and there's a hold, like that's something they could control that they didn't. And so like we just took care of business and put our head down, and eventually they made the mistakes.
I had that. You get to your question, the second one. I had that same thought. It's like, this is my first time. I didn't play in the Super Bowl in 2014.
Yeah.
I was an actor. I was like, damn, like this is my first time playing the Super Bowl. We about to get blown out by like 28 points. I had that same exact thought.
Dude, it was crazy. I was like, what a sick joke, the NFL.
But Chris, what was that celebration feeling like once that clock hit 00? Like you said, your journey has been, crazy as far as losing, but finally that clock hit 00 and you're a Super Bowl champion. What was that feeling that hit you right away?
Just a big relief, man. It's a relief more than anything. It's like, as an NFL player, I think it's such a competitive place. It's so humbling. You have so many ups and downs. You can be real self-conscious about your career. You can be your harshest critic, man. There's still things that even in the Super Bowl that we won those games, I look back at plays I didn't make, and I'm like still dwelling on those as much as I'm dwelling on the good times. And that's just the way we're wired. And so, for me, if I hadn't won that Super Bowl, if I hadn't been a part of that team, I don't know where I'd be right now. I don't think I'd be talking to you. I wouldn't be on a microphone. I'd be hiding, like, no, I was thinking about retiring, and, the way it came down, man, just to give me the freedom to make a decision that I made the next year, to have a ring, to feel like what it was like to win. I have so much respect and appreciation for not just Bill, but Tom and all the guys on that team, man, because that was a gift to a guy like me. I know I played my part, but other guys that are like me that came in that building for a year or two, kind of mercenaries, we're just thankful that somebody built that infrastructure up. To say, hey, like it's not as easy as ring chasing in the NFL. It is ring chasing. That's what I was doing. But it's not like the NBA where one or two guys can swing the thing completely. And, it is a team game, and we found ourselves down 28-3 to the Falcons. So, there's no sure thing when it comes to like the Pats, for instance. If it's not for that Seattle Super Bowl, there's a long drought, right? Where it's not a foregone conclusion that just because you have Tom Brady, you get to win the thing. So I was so thankful and so relieved, man, because it changed my life.
All right. Hey, you know what? I wanted to ask you. You came from a era of, where the game was still hard hitting, physical. It's still there now, but like, what have you thought about all the rule changes when it comes to, now the hip drop tackle being banned, things like that. You can't tackle the quarterback and put your weight on him, which I think is impossible. But that's a tough one. Like, what has been your thoughts on the direction that the league is heading with all these like rule changes? Obviously, you want to protect guys, but what have been your thoughts on that?
Listen, obviously it's a business, and the business is predicated on people scoring points. So I'm not naive. My check's clear just fine. It's clear now, and the game's in a really good place to where there's a ton of money for everybody. Like for me, James, anybody. And I think when the league's doing well, we're doing well. So I understand there's a little bit of give and take, and you got to keep the offense on the field. Nobody wants to watch two backup quarterbacks, and so
that's a good point.
I understood in the beginning the no headshots. Like, okay, some of these old AFC North games were insane, like the Ryan Clark kind of games.
Yeah.
Okay. But then when it got to be weight on the quarterback, I thought that was really tough. I think this hip drop tackle, although it's not something that's going to happen a whole lot.
Right.
There will be some guys who will be unintentionally flagged for hip drop. And I wonder what James thinks about this, but I know that some guys use it as an intentional thing where it's a technique. I was never a good enough tackler. I was a bad tackler to know how to do something like that. Like there are some guys who can put you down exactly how they want to put you down. Yeah. There's also most guys that are like, this is a really hard sport. People are compared to fucking rugby, and rugby, we got rid of the hip drop tackle. Yeah. Well, where's Tyreek Hill on the rugby field? Like, where's right? You think you have an angle, all of a sudden you're on a guy's back and you're flying past him. You're coming in from the side, and if you try to get him down, you could land on the back of his legs. I think the tough thing is, it's like it's going to be predicated on where the offensive player's legs are, not how you tackle. Does his foot stick in the ground? Are you playing on turf? Is it an awkward situation for the ball carrier? I think also the Pittman Jr. play against Kazee, I think it was, in the Pittsburgh game this year is a perfect example of like, listen, I know by the letter of the law that's a penalty, but I also know that there was no way to get to him without doing that. And I also know that like people say, well, just go for the ball. The ball is on his face. So I really feel sorry for defenses. I also think the NFL looks at the scoring over the last 5 years and they say, hey, it's been down. Like it really has. Save for the pandemic year where there were no fans in the stands. When you go on the road, the scoring's down. So they want it back up. And I think also this kickoff rule is one that's interesting because that's the rare circumstance where I think everybody wins, because I think it's actually going to be an exciting play. I think you're going to get more of your best ball carriers back there to return kicks.
True.
There's going to be more gamesmanship. It's going to be cool, and it makes the game a little bit safer, and it's going to incentivize people to take these kickoffs out.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think in this situation, the NFL, we looked at this on the pod. Teams that started at the 30-yard line, there was a big difference between the 30 and the 28 as far as like how scored. So, they're looking at this stuff and saying, okay, how do we manipulate and pull levers just to get things the way we want them statistically? And I understand that.
Yeah. I love the kickoff rule. I think it's going to be exciting. You'll see guys like Tyreek Hill back there more often, Jalen Waddle. Our players going to be back there every time because guys not getting a running start. You got Tyreek Hill running at you with a 4-2. That's going to be hard to tackle. But when it comes to the hip drop tackle thing, I told them, I was like, I've gotten hurt by it. So I don't have a problem with do I think
officer guy?
No. Do I think they should be flagged? Yeah, maybe. That's how I say it. Like, when it comes to it, just because we've seen a lot of guys over the last few years get hurt from it. And like I said, they're trying to safen the game. Just
like a horse collar a little bit from a force standpoint.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. I really do. I just hope that they err on the side of letting people play
first. Yeah.
Every situation is going to be that way. And there's not going to be a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly, I don't know, as a ball carrier, if somebody can't hip drop tackle you, are you feeling a little bit more invincible? No.
Once every games.
I was just thinking, you got guys like, Derrick Henry, hard runners like that. You mentioned Josh Allen, somebody that gets up as a hard running quarterback, things like that. Like, you're going to take a bad angle, things that you're going to have to try to get a guy down as quick as you can. Like, you don't want a guy to score, get first downs. Like, it's
extra yards.
It's a game of inches. So
the Logan Wilson play that they highlighted, actually somebody came out and said that's not going to be a penalty. So I'm totally confused
That's interesting.
by that. Now, the Logan Wilson play, for instance, where somebody might say, hey, that's malicious, because it might look that way, especially the way he kind of got up and teabagged him and drug his I think actually, like, when you look at that, it's a perfect example of, okay, you're at the sticks.
Yeah.
The only way that he was going to get him down short of the sticks is that tackle. And, you know, like, I'm not excusing it, but what I am saying is, like, it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's football. And so if you give guys a chance to adjust, I hope it's one of those things where they call it early and then back off it to train us out of it. It was like early with the head and neck area thing, they called everything. And people were like, you know, what are we doing? And eventually it kind of subsides.
Yeah. I guess my final question for you is, you know, we talked a little bit about player empowerment. We've seen it now through, you know, the college kids now going to the combine. They're not testing. They're not doing interviews like Marvin Harrison Jr. And things like that. What's your thoughts on? Not everybody's going to be able to do that because not everybody's a top 5 pick. Yeah. Because some guys need the combine to show themselves. But how do you feel about guys not participating in those aspects?
Well, I think the combine's really important for guys to show teams who they are personally. Like, I think as much as anything, I think the testing's great. When the combine started, they were just doing that for medical. They were, you know, it's like, you know, it was expensive enough to get medical that it really needed to be a place where you can consolidate and put everybody in one place. And now, like, the medical is really important, but the running, the jumping, like all that stuff, like, it's good. I think the meetings are really important, like the face-to-face. And also I look back at, like, my time. I didn't do my pro day. I did my pro day, but I had my head coach work me out. And he happened to be Al Groh, former NFL coach. You know, he's in the Parcells tree. So I kind of I figured that was my loophole to control the situation a little bit more and still have the scouts trust who my coach was. Yeah. Now, so I guess I say that to say I don't judge guys. Like, and especially a guy who knows he's going to get picked in the top 5, he's exercising his leverage. Yeah, for sure. You know, like Caleb Williams, I got nothing to prove. You're going to pick me anyways. So why would I come out here and screw my deal up? You know, so I understand that. I just think there's a fine line where you want to still be a throwback guy, right? Like, James played for the Pats, so I'm sure he feels this way too. But, like, I think there's value to guys doing some things when they don't have to because it proves something. Yeah. And so as time goes on, when some people are, you know, taking it off, you know, like, I think it's going to be cool to see certain guys that decide to do everything because, you know, that could give you a leg up and speak volumes about your fearlessness or your character or whatever it is.
I love that answer, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, here on the Money Down, me, James Warren, we're huge fans of your podcast.
Yeah, big time.
This is fucking cool, dude. Brought some good dudes with it, man.
We're huge fans of yours. Who has been your favorite guest or, you know, somebody that you had that you enjoyed talking to on your pod?
Dude, I love, you know, and you guys will find this where it's like the recurring guests are awesome. So people that come on a lot, like Scott Van Pelt's coming on tomorrow. He's a guy that gave me a lot of my, like, the start, you know, in the business. Like, I used to go on his show a lot and he's really looked out for me. Guys like that, you know, having Aaron Donald on the other day, anytime you have somebody you played with, man, it's a different connection, man. And so it helps when it happens to be somebody like AD. But I love the non-football guests too. I had this guy named Paul Nicklin, who I always reference. He was, he still is, like, he's a biologist for National Geographic, and he takes all their pictures. So, like, if you ever see a picture of anything like in the Arctic, like narwhals or
that's dope.
Or, you know, like whatever. This guy has gone scuba diving with orcas. He's had a cup of coffee with an Alaskan brown bear, like, right next to him. Like, this dude is he's a daredevil. And
he's fearless.
The stories he has are incredible. And I had him on one time for like 90 minutes and I could have talked to him for 3-4 hours. So I love talking in the off season when you can have something else, not football. It's kind of refreshing for me too. But I love having, like, Eric Dickerson told some of the best stories I've ever heard. Like, I couldn't believe how funny he was. Ninko's been great on the pod.
Ninko's hilarious.
Yeah.
We just mix it up, and after a while, what you realize is like, hey, getting the big name guests is great. Sometimes you get the big name guests, and you're like, what the fuck? Nobody listened.
Yeah.
It's more about people you want to talk to, man.
Yeah.
And people that have good conversations. I think that's what this thing is about. Is just listen to people like they're sitting on the couch, you know.
Yeah.
So.
That's a dope thing, man. We appreciate you joining us, taking the time out, joining the money down. I definitely had to come on the green light.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we gotta do like a Pat spot because everybody accuses me of being an Eagles homer. I really love having on with Steve Belichick.
Oh, yeah, Steve's good, man. Steve's one of the guys. And people don't know.
I love having Steve on. We'll do a Pat spot soon.
Let's do that,
For
man.
sure.
Yeah. And I appreciate James White. I know I was joking about it earlier, but we don't win the Super Bowl. Hey, one of the best teammates and just a great player, man. So
Agree. Love that.
And we got Bo Allen.
Yeah, Bo.
Yeah, team.
Yeah.
Big Bo.
So guys.
Big Bo used to, before we leave, Big Bo used to terrorize. Well, when I get a chance to talk to Bo, I'm gonna tell him he used to terrorize me as a freshman. I used to hate walking in him and Big Rob. I used to hate walking into the locker room.
Haven't seen?
Yep.
Yeah.
I played with Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, in LA, I used to, or St. Louis, I always used to have the bull rushes.
Yeah.
Big Rob and Bo. If I walked into that player locker room and I seen them, I was going the other way.
Just
But
turn around.
coolest people ever.
Them boys was hilarious.
He's the man, dude. So we got plenty of Wisconsin stories we can get out of you.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Chris, man.
Hey,
appreciate
Chris,
you, man.
this was dope, bro.
Hey,
We're
hey,
huge
hey,
fans too.
No, dude. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. This is super chill. And James, you got this thing going. So anytime you want me on, bro, just holler. Anytime during the season the Eagles are doing something, you want to do a little football bullshit, I got you.